Imagine discovering that love, jealousy, marriage, even heartbreak, may not have begun with poetry or culture, but on an ancient evolutionary battlefield millions of years ago. Every glance across a crowded room, every surge of attraction, every fear of betrayal may carry echoes of survival strategies inherited from our earliest ancestors. But here is the surprising part. Many of the emotions we consider deeply personal were shaped long before civilization, cities, or even language existed. Are our romantic choices truly our own, or are invisible evolutionary forces still quietly influencing them today? To answer that question, we must journey back to where human relationships first began. To understand why men and women often display different mating preferences, we have to begin with one of evolution's most fundamental asymmetries. It starts with a single egg and millions of sperm. While sperm are tiny, inexpensive to produce, and continually replenished, an egg represents a massive biological investment. For women, reproduction extends far beyond fertilization. Pregnancy lasts around 9 months, followed by years of nursing and intensive childcare. Across our evolutionary history, every reproductive decision carried enormous consequences. Because of this unequal parental investment, natural selection favored different reproductive strategies. Females became more selective when choosing long-term partners, often favoring individuals who could provide protection, resources, reliability, and cooperative parenting. This pattern appears remarkably consistent across cultures. In David Buss's landmark study involving more than 10,000 participants from 37 societies, women, on average, placed greater value on a partner's ability to acquire resources, ambition, and commitment. Men, meanwhile, faced a different evolutionary challenge. Since their minimum biological investment at conception was far smaller, selection generally rewarded greater competition with other males for access to mates, traits signaling youth, health, and fertility, including clear skin, facial symmetry, and the well-known waist-to-hip ratio of approximately 0.7, became widely preferred because they statistically correlated with reproductive potential. These patterns do not dictate individual choices today, but they reveal how millions of years of evolution continue to leave subtle fingerprints on modern attraction. If men and women evolved under different reproductive pressures, what happens when those strategies collide? The answer is something evolutionary biologists call sexual conflict, a silent competition in which the reproductive interests of one sex do not always perfectly align with those of the other. Studies suggest that deception can become one of the tools in this evolutionary game. In surveys, many men admitted exaggerating their emotional commitment to increase the chances of short-term sexual relationships, while women more often reported feeling misled about a partner's sincerity, kindness, or willingness to commit. Of course, these are statistical trends across populations, not descriptions of every individual. Human behavior is shaped by personality, culture, and personal values as much as biology. Jealousy may have evolved for similar reasons. Evolutionary psychologists propose that men, on average, tend to react more strongly to sexual infidelity because of ancestral uncertainty over paternity. Women, on average, often experience greater distress over emotional infidelity, which could have signaled the loss of a partner's time, protection, and resources. These hypotheses remain actively debated, but they help explain why jealousy can feel so immediate and overwhelming. Now we'd love to hear from you. Do you think jealousy is mostly learned from society, or do you believe it has deep evolutionary roots? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could spark an interesting discussion with viewers from around the world. Few questions in evolutionary science generate more debate than this one. Were our ancestors naturally monogamous, or did they live in sexually open communities? In Sex at Dawn, authors Christopher Ryan and Casilda Jetha argue that prehistoric hunter-gatherers lived in relatively egalitarian bands where sex strengthened trust, cooperation, and social bonds rather than serving as an exclusive contract between two individuals. They point to several intriguing clues. Human testicle size falls between that of gorillas, which experience relatively little sperm competition, and chimpanzees, where females mate with multiple males. Some anthropological studies of hunter-gatherer societies also suggest flexible residence patterns that may have encouraged unusually high levels of cooperation among unrelated people. But the story does not end there. In Sex at Dusk, biologist Lynn Saxon challenges these conclusions, arguing that natural selection would rarely favor males who ignored uncertainty about paternity. Across both human societies and many animal species, researchers have documented mate guarding, jealousy, punishment for infidelity, and intense competition over reproduction. From this perspective, our species may be better described as practicing serial monogamy, forming long-term pair bonds that sometimes dissolve and reform over a lifetime. So which interpretation is correct? The evidence remains mixed, and many scientists believe the answer is more complex than either extreme. Human evolution appears to have produced a remarkably flexible species, capable of adapting its mating strategies to changing environments, cultures, and social systems. When we think of family, we often imagine love, protection, and sacrifice. But evolution reveals another layer, one that begins long before a baby's first breath. Inside the womb, mother and fetus are not simply working toward the same goal. They share many genetic interests, but not all of them. Because a fetus inherits only half of its genes from its mother, evolutionary biologists have proposed that it is selected to extract as many resources as possible to maximize its own chances of survival. In response, the mother's body constantly regulates how much energy she can safely provide while protecting her own health and preserving the possibility of future pregnancies. This biological tug-of-war may help explain pregnancy complications such as preeclampsia, in which fetal and maternal physiology interact in complex ways. Scientists continue to investigate these mechanisms, but the conflict itself is well supported in evolutionary theory. The struggle doesn't end after birth. Brothers and sisters compete, sometimes subtly, sometimes openly, for attention, food, time, and parental investment. Yet this competition also teaches cooperation, negotiation, and social intelligence, traits that helped our ancestors survive in tightly connected communities. Here's a question for you. If you have siblings, did you ever compete for your parents' attention, or were you always close allies? Share your experience in the comments. Your stories may show how these ancient evolutionary patterns still echo in modern families in surprisingly familiar ways. After millions of years of evolution, one question remains. Are we still following the same biological blueprint, or have we learned to rewrite it? Today, some people choose lifelong monogamy. Others experience several long-term relationships throughout their lives. Some remain happily single, while others decide never to have children at all. These choices remind us that although evolution shaped our instincts, it does not dictate our destiny. Our large brains, culture, moral values, and personal experiences allow us to make decisions that our distant ancestors never could. Even modern dating reflects this fascinating tension. Technology has expanded our choices, but the emotional questions remain surprisingly ancient. Who can I trust? Who will stay? Who is the right partner to build a future with? In many ways, the Stone Age mind still navigates a digital world. So here's a question for you. Do you believe humans are naturally suited for one lifelong partner? Or do you think having multiple meaningful relationships over a lifetime is more realistic? And, looking back on your own journey, how many serious romantic partners have you had? Share your thoughts in the comments. Everyone's story is different, and respectful discussions make this community stronger. If you've enjoyed exploring the science behind human relationships, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue creating evidence-based documentaries that uncover the hidden evolutionary stories shaping our lives today.